All right, guys. So um, yesterday we started, and this week we're talking about Mesopotamia, and we're also talking about Egypt. But in Mesopotamia, we're going to have a guy named Hammurabi. Okay, he's going to become a Babylonian king. Okay, which is one of the empires that we are going to see inside of Mesopotamia itself, which is one of those city states that kind of explodes as a result of the growth of Mesopotamia. And so Hammurabi was this Babylonian king, and he's going to come up with his own code, okay, a code of laws. Okay, and here's a little bit about those. Okay, so like I said, he's a Babylonian king. He introduced the first ever written law code in the 18th century BC. Okay, so 18,000 years before Christ. Okay, we're going to have our first ever written law. Okay, and it's going to be called Hammurabi's Code. Now, Hammurabi's Code had legal principles, okay, meaning it had 282 specific laws, which told you how things should go, what they should be, okay, how you should act, okay. Also, the punishment for your crime, okay. And really, this started to instill a lot of morals in people, meaning people became dependent um, on the fact that they had to do well in order to not be punished. Okay, so if you got blamed for anything and it was found to be true, okay, whatever happened to that person that you may have done will be done the same as unto you. Okay, so punishments were decided based on class. Okay, so it was fines for the wealthy. Okay, so if the wealthy people did something, most time they just paid a fine. Okay, but if you were in the lower classes, okay, middle class, lower class, your peasants, okay, it was physical punishment. Okay, so a basis for law in Mesopotamia for a millennia. Okay, it also influenced law codes in other areas. So this didn't just stay inside of Babylon. Okay, this spread all throughout Mesopotamia. If a freeman brings false testimony in a case that carries the death sentence, he shall be put to death. Okay, so if somebody goes to the court and they say, "Hey, this happened," it turns out that it was a lie. Okay, you don't lie because if you do, they'll kill you. If a builder builds a house and does not make the construction firm and the house collapses and that causes the death of the owner, the builder shall be put to death. So, once again, if I build someone a house, they die, then I should be put to death because it was my fault that the house collapsed. If a man destroys the eye of another man, they shall destroy his eye. Okay, so that right there is like the one phrase you can revert back to Hammurabi's code: an eye for an eye. Okay, a tooth for a tooth. Okay, a hand for a hand. Okay, if one breaks a man's bone, they shall break his bone. If one destroys the eye of a freeman, or they break the bone of a freeman, he shall pay one man of silver. Okay, if one destroys the eye of a man's slave, or breaks a bone of a man's slave, he shall pay one half his price. Okay, so that's like your wealthy people if they're having to pay that kind of stuff. But if you are in those lower classes and you do this stuff, you're going to have to pay the physical price. Okay, so that was just real quick um, going over Hammurabi's code. Um, what we'll also do, which won't take too long, I don't think, is we will go ahead and go over the Mesopotamia and Egypt. Now, look, whenever you're going over this stuff, um, pay attention if you're in class. If not, please listen to these as they will help you. Okay, so Mesopotamia. So Mesopotamia is the first ever civilization from a long time ago. Okay, one of the first places that we kind of have record of architecture and stuff like that that we can date back to being one of the first civilizations in the world. Okay, so this lies in the Fertile Crescent. Okay, because of the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates that run right through here, and it makes this whole area right here very fertile. Okay, if you have a lot of water, it's going to help things grow. Okay, how many of you have ever been down by the river somewhere and you see everything that grows right near it? It's because it makes the soil very sand-like, but also very fertile. Okay, so in this area, they are going to start to rely heavily upon agriculture. Okay, the only bad thing about Mesopotamia is it doesn't have any natural boundaries. Okay, you don't have like the huge Himalayan mountains and all that kind of stuff. You just kind of have this big area, okay, which is now like Iraq, Pakistan, those places. What we now know as the Middle East. Okay, that's where the Fertile Crescent is. Okay, advances in technology led to specialization of labor. Okay, farming and agriculture is the main thing. So when you look at this, okay, specialization of labor just means that somebody had a special job. Okay, we're all different from each other. If you go in a carpet mill today, not everybody has the same job. Okay, back then, not everybody had the same job. Okay, everybody had their own thing that they had to do. Okay, the religion. Okay, they were polytheistic. Polytheistic means more than one. Okay, so more than one god. Okay, they viewed gods as cruel. Honestly, because I feel like how they did their things, it was mean, it was cruel. They didn't really have a whole set list of morals to begin with, but you know, they also seen death, um, and death is never happy. It's always sad. So they viewed the afterlife kind of the same way, gloomy and fearful. Okay, politics. It was constantly fighting. Okay, constant fighting took place within Mesopotamia. You had all these city states. City states are just big cities. Okay, that run themselves with their own laws and own rules within a certain area. Okay, and they would take over one another if they had to, but just because that was part of it. Okay, so you had one guy. Okay, Hammurabi is going to be one of those guys. Okay, that thinks he's better than everybody. He can take his kingdom and he can destroy other ones, and whatever he catches, they're going to make slaves out of those people. Um, which is going to lead to this. Okay, so their culture and technology. Okay, they're going to develop social classes, meaning you're going to have the wealthy, you're going to have the merchants, the middle class, you're going to have the lower class. Okay, they're going to have irrigation canals and plows. Plows are just those things that you kind of pull across the ground behind an animal. It churns up the ground, and then you can plant your stuff. They relied heavily on slaves to do a lot of this work, but then they developed a form of writing. Okay, it's called cuneiform. If you watch the videos I've posted, you will see that. All right, so Egypt. Okay, Egypt is going to have a lot of similarities. Okay, Egypt is not far from here. Okay, so right here is Egypt. Okay, so we see that the Middle East is here. Okay, they're going to be on the north part of the Red Sea. Okay, where the Mesopotamia is on the north part of the Persian Gulf. Okay, but both of them touch the Mediterranean. Okay, which means later on, as we get into like Roman and Greeks, okay, we're going to see that they do and are going to have influence on the Fertile Crescent as well as Egypt. But Egypt is close by. If you'll notice, it has a river that runs through it. Okay, so just like Mesopotamia, it's going to develop along the Nile River, which is a different river than the Tigris and Euphrates, but it's the same concept. Okay, the river floods a lot. It also produces an abundance of livestock. It also produces an abundance of natural greenery plants. They can plant all sorts of stuff, and so once again, they're going to rely heavily upon agriculture. And with this specialization of labor, everybody kind of has their own job. Everybody has something special that they can do. They understand that. Um, they were also polytheistic. Later on, they're going to change to monotheistic. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But they were viewed as dependable. Okay, so the afterlife was rich, happy. Their pharaohs that they had believed that when they died, they became gods. Okay, so they had to view the afterlife as happy because they knew whatever they did in this world, they could take to the next. Hey, they would bury their gold, they would bury servants, they would bury all of their war weapons, and sometimes they would bury their animals. So if they had pets, they'd have their pets killed and also mummified. Little change. They didn't have a lot of invasions just because they were powerful and they were kind of the only ones there in the region. But when they did, they also relied heavily upon slaves. Okay, if you ever know the story of Moses from the Bible, um, Moses wanted to free his people. His people, were enslaved, and they used slaves to build their massive structures, especially the pyramids. Okay, culture and technology. They developed social classes like everybody else. Irrigation canals, plows. Irrigation canals are just waterways that run through your fields and stuff to help water the plants. And they had forms of writing. Okay, but their forms of writing is called hieroglyphics, and you'll see that in the Egyptian video if you watch that. It's just where they use symbols and pictures to do their forms of writing. Okay, so monotheism. Okay, so monotheism is mono, one. Okay, the belief in one God. Okay, the religious sects that we have in today is Christianity, Judaism, Islam. Okay, but Judaism is going to be the first ever one to be created, and it's created, okay, under Pharaoh Akhenaten. Okay, however you want to say that, you can. I don't care. Um, and it happened because the Hebrews. Okay, so the Hebrews were there. He wanted to make basically peace with them. They come together, and they are. He's going to switch from hieroglyphics. Or I'm sorry, not hieroglyphics. He's going to switch from being polytheistic to being monotheistic. Okay, belief in one God and that God will protect His people in exchange for obedience. Out of this, you're going to get the Ten Commandments. Okay, the Ten Commandments are the rule of law. Okay, especially in the Christian and the Judaism sections of religion. Okay, but it's going to split into two sections. Okay, the synagogue is going to develop, and Judaism was formally founded. Okay, so you're going to have those that still believe in polytheism and those that believe in monotheism. So now you're going to start to get this debate. Sorry, you're going to start to get this debate of Christianity that's going to come around later, but mainly Judaism at the beginning, okay, with the whole polyistic view of, you know, all of these other gods that they have inside of the Egyptian rule. So the examples: Christianity, Judaism, Islam. But know that Judaism, the Jewish people, okay, those are the first ever to be created. So make sure you watch these videos, guys. I'll have them posted. You have a good day.